Okay, well, I'll tell you what, it has been a long time since I've shot one of these. This is the revival, the resurrection of Leave It to Deever. I've had another podcast in the middle there, just a UFC podcast I've been having a lot of fun with. But honestly, I always thought and knew I'd have to come back to Leave It to Deever at some point. It's just, it's my potpourri podcast where I talk to people who are super interesting to me. So I'm glad to be back. I know you guys have just been dying for me to be back for Leave It to Deever. My guest today is somebody who I'm glad to have as my first episode back, somebody I find incredibly interesting, but it is the one and only blonde Dan Thomas. I've known Dan now for, I first met you at that Hive, which was, what was that, like a year?
Was that last year?
Yeah, it was a year ago almost, or it was just over a year ago. I was at the Hive event. You came in a purple suit or a dark blue suit, right?
I don't.
I remember
yeah.
it was that blue suit, and I met you.
There's a story to that suit, actually.
I'm gonna want to hear, but it was just honestly, it was like you're just infected. If you don't know Dan, you should know Dan. It's just this infectious personality where you're one of the only people on Instagram that I'll follow and watch all your videos and actually do things that you say. I hate to put you on the spot. I know this is your second podcast ever, first in studio, but. Dan, thanks for being here, and tell us a little about yourself. Where you're from, where do you live, and what do you do?
Well, I've been trying to think of a good Instagram bio.
Yeah.
It'd be like from Taco Bell worker to accredited investor.
Yeah.
But I grew up in Snowflake, Arizona. My mom's in prison right now, and she pretty much been on drugs most of my life. And I think that gave me a lot of my complexities and drive. It's been like the blessing and the curse.
Yeah.
So I grew up there, and which is only like 15 minutes from, Holiday? What's his name?
Sean Holiday?
Yeah,
Where he grew up? Yeah.
Shola, Arizona. So kind of have that little region in common.
Sean Holiday's been a guest on this podcast.
Oh, has he really?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
Awesome.
Carrying on the legacy of that region of Arizona.
Yeah, repping the 928. That's the 928 area code. And I came up to live with this guy. He's my ex-uncle. I had never met him, but his son, we were like best friends growing up. We've been just like Jesus and John in the womb kind of thing. We've just been best friends before we were even born. And I came and lived with him and went and worked a summer painting tanks. That's how I initially got into what I do now.
Still down in Arizona?
No, I came up here. I was a junior. It was my summer year between junior and senior. So I went and painted tanks. And, yeah, it's kind of, I always think of that, like the holes analogy when he's like, you take a bad kid, you put him in the hot sun. It was like, I was a little bit of a
rebel. So explain to people what painting tanks means.
Yeah. So for the military, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No, they're these like big white tanks in the backs of hospitals, and it touches literally almost every industry, because like liquid nitrogen is what they're using in any kind of food place to make semiconductors. They're using like oxygen and nitrogen and all these crazy, any kind of welding is going to be argon. So and these are just the gases in the atmosphere that they distill down into like liquid oxygen, liquid nitrogen.
Yeah.
So I got to see a lot of crazy industries too. I've been to like all 50 states. And
have you actually been to all 50?
I have been to, there's one I'm not sure, so I say 49. But I have actually been to all 49.
Because that's one of my big goals. I want to go to every state, but I count it even if I get out of the car at a gas station.
Yeah.
Because I don't got time. I was just passing through, actually, Mississippi. I stopped at the Hard Rock Casino because I can't help myself. But I counted, like, if I get out of the car at a gas station, it's a countless state. I'm at like 29 states or something. But all 49, you don't know which one? Which one are you
It's
not sure?
The one that I'm not sure about is like Rhode Island.
You got to just fly out there at some point just to be sure about it. Or do they just mark the states? But yeah, that's cool. Okay, so we need
to go on a diamond date. Since we're both diamond with Delta, we just need to be like...
I need somebody to teach me how to better use my diamond status, because I'm too scared to ever not book first class because I'm afraid that they won't bump me. So I just always book it. I've already reached diamond again for this year, because I'm just too scared to not book first. So me and you need to teach me how to use.
You're
my
on your way to
stairs.
the 360 Club. You're going to be.
Yeah, because we're about to we're going to Paris on Wednesday, and I'm sitting main cabin, but I think there's a way I can move it up to first class by my picking. I need you to educate me. I'll tell you, this is something me and you joke around a lot, but people should know is that Dan is like an expert in Delta. You've spent a lot of time on planes, and for me, I'm just going to get to the destination. But you seem to just know Delta. Do you feel like that's part of your personality? Is like things that you do often, you dig in and try and really understand them, or do you? It feels like you deep dive on things that are around you. You want to understand them.
So I've done a lot of visualizations to get those first class, and I kind of say that as a joke, but like I remember before I was making good money, I used to carry rocks in my pocket that they say will make you rich. And so I'm a little bit kind of in the airy-fairy world that way.
Well, and
believe in that.
You know what's
stuff.
so funny to me, dude, is like I think at this point, I mean, we've been a lot of Instagram buddies, but I think we've talked in depth enough to, I'd really consider you a good buddy of mine. And I'll tell you, I am not that way. And for the first time ever, I was watching your stories the other day about how you visualize, you get in the sauna and do those things. And I'm telling you, I'm not joking. Anybody else, I was like, no. But you were saying it, and I'm telling you, for some reason, I dig your style. And so I went into the sauna the other day, and I'm not a meditation guy. I'm not anything, right? I'm very much just go out, and I don't even write things down, really. I just kind of go. And I know it's a shortcoming for me. But I went in the sauna the other day, and I put in my headphones, and you told me to put on, in your story, you were saying put on theta tones and all these things that I had never Googled before in my life, right? And that's not the first time I've Googled things that I'd never heard of before from what you've said. But the other ones I can't really talk about. My family listens to the podcast. Just kidding. But
yeah.
But I get in there and it's just hot in there, and I'm like, I don't know, but I'm feeling kind of relaxed. And all of a sudden, I get like jolted awake, and some guy that I kind of know like was touching me, like to let me know he was in the room, and I was just like, oh, and I didn't realize how deep into it I had been getting. I was like, okay, I was kind of pissed off because I'd gotten pulled out of this thing. But the relaxation of it makes me want to do it more. How do you, because honestly what I love about you, dude, is you're so authentically you. You don't care, right? Which is a lot of how I am. For me, I'm just like, I just say the things that I'm thinking, right? And, it gets into some of the other stuff you do on Instagram, but you're so authentically you, which... I'm not going to say that's led to your success, right? But I think that's how you're the type of guy that success won't change. Because a lot of people are so worried about what people think of them that once they get money, now they're moved up to the next class. So now they care what these people think about somebody who has money, what they're supposed to dress and look like, and what the next person. And that's how I am. Is I walk around. I mean, these are my nice pants, and they're khakis, and they got a hole in the crotch. You know what I mean? I've always just not cared what people thought of me. And so that's why, as I've made money, I'm still the guy in sweat shorts, and you think that I'm the guy, I'm the grip helping with the cameras. What would you say it is about you that allows you to be so authentically you that you just don't care what people think? Is that something that you developed? I mean, how is it that you are that way?
That's a great question. Honestly, I feel like I go back and forth because there's this part of me that's like, oh, I joked about wearing platform shoes today, but I really do it. And then I'll be like so insecure or ashamed about it that I'm just like, I should just get a shirt. That should be like 6 foot with my shoes on.
Yeah.
And then like I'm pretty open about the bro talks.
Yeah.
Which that was interesting how many messages I got back from people when I was like, I think maybe it's time to re-up. I can move my eyebrows.
Yeah.
Right? So yeah, starting to. But I just almost be like disarmingly honest, I guess. Just like my nickname when I was on the mission was Honest Thomas.
Yeah.
And I one time won the honesty award in like first grade, second grade. And I wonder if that like pre-programmed me
that honesty
to be
will
like
get you mentally rewarded.
That was like my honesty. I latched onto that value, and so I really struggle to lie, even if I was like, yeah, I thank goodness never have to go through a deposition or something because I only can just say what the one setting is.
That's what I'll say is I got no problem lying on the stand, but just because I think it's funny in court. Just kidding. It's just a joke. Honestly, that's something that early on in my marriage, right, I used to go to I'm a degenerate gambler, and I should probably work on it, but I think that's how my whole life has been, and I think that's why I've been successful in business is that I'm willing to make the gamble, and I'm going to strike out 7 times, but, maybe hit a home run on the 8th, right? And early on in my marriage, we were living down in St. George, and I'd pop down to Mesquite a lot, right, while I was supposed to be working. Mesquite is just the closest casino. Casablanca. Or the other one that I would go to is I would never go to Virgin River because that was gross. Low ceiling, so the cigarettes were nasty. But the one across the street from Virgin River is, oh, man, I can't believe I'm going to forget that. Well, I was there all the time. But I'd go there, and then I'd come home, and my wife, I'd smell like cigarettes, not because I don't smoke, but because, it's a casino. And my wife would be like, oh, you went to the casino? I'm like, no, I didn't. And one time she told me, she said, I don't care that you're doing it. I care that you're lying to me, right? So just tell me and it'll be okay. And I just thought to myself, no, you're trying to trick me. But I said, prove me now herewith, saith the wife, you know what I mean? And I started telling her, hey, I'm going to go to the casino. She said, okay. Or, hey, I'm going to go do this thing or that thing. Something that conventionally a wife would not be cool with, whatever it is, nothing too crazy. And she would just always be like, okay, yeah. And I learned early and often, like, I'm just going to tell her, and that's what she wants from me. That's how, she knows I'm not a perfect man. It would be easy to love me if I was a perfect man. But her being allowed to be my partner and in the loop of things, that made it so easy for me. And I've always said, I honestly just kind of say things that are top of mind. I say very irreverent things when I should be more formal. And I've always found that people are a little bit disarmed. Some people are always going to be turned off by it, but what can I do? I'm not in it for everybody. But I get to be authentically me because I'm not worried about decorum so much, right? And it's been a big boon for me. You've been doing this series, and I don't know if you mind talking about it, but I'd love to talk about your burpees that you have to do.
Yeah, let's talk about it.
And honestly, I love it. Explain to us what your burpee series is.
So if it started out with 1 for 1. If I looked at a girl's butt, I was going to do 1 extra burpee in addition to 101 that I was already doing as part of my workout routine. And I feel like I need to qualify this. Like Lifetime Fitness, there's a disproportionate amount of good-looking bodies, male and female, I'll say it. I'm not gay, but I'm just like, you want to talk, if you got insecurities, like Lifetime Fitness will definitely bring it out. Let's just say I never wore platform shoes till I went to Lifetime. But just keeping it 100. I was like, okay, let's just see. I'm just going to start counting. I'm just going to be like, on my watch, I'm just going to hit the calculator, hit +1. And I remember, and this was me being intentional. I'm trying not to look, if you don't look once, you're not a man. If you look twice, you're not a missionary. Yeah. That was kind of the thought I had. It was like, well, we're going to try not to even look once. And I did I think 10. Yeah. And it was just, I remember being like, that's not the worst in the world. I can tell my wife, hey, it's 10. And then putting it on Instagram was even scarier. Was like, oh man, maybe I'm gonna watch my favorite followers just leave after this. And I ended up getting 9 or 10, and then after a while it would get down to I did one time get to 0 a couple times actually, but usually it would be 3 or 4. Then I started to realize that's not really enough of an ouchie anymore. So I upped it to 10. Yeah. I think I need to probably up it to 20, if I'm being honest, man.
Well, then also you started to move it up the vertical line.
Oh, you were asking me. You were like, well, what about the front? Yeah. And I've always considered myself a peach guy, not the melons. But it's funny how when you're only looking at people's eyes all day, it does start to change your where your eyes go. And one day I was in my house and my wife walked by and I was going to look at her butt and I instantly looked up and I realized, wait, well, you can look at your wife's butt. Your wife, but it was that I caught myself before I looked, and that's what my goal was, is to build this I watched, I think Chris Crone just put out a video today on it, or recently, someone sent it to me, where he's talking about like it starts when you start looking at the menu. And that really kind of is the menu when you start looking. Even though it's not like I'm sitting there lusting, it's just like you naturally go to that. And so
if you, natural man.
Yeah. And if you train your eyes to not look at it, you start to notice like a lot of, mainly I notice other guys. I would like watch other guys. Like, I'd be like, and you do get a little bit of almost like an elitist complex going. Like, come on, you bro. you still are that base limbic system mammal. Yeah. You haven't evolved into the prefrontal cortex. Like I'm ready to be uploaded to the Neuralink. Like I'm there.
Why do you feel? Well, because even like I was watching one of your stories, and you talked about you guys were watching a movie. And some girl's butt was on there, and you're like, damn.
We all watched that, Sydney Sweeney or whatever.
Yeah, and it was with your wife, and you even said, damn it, there's one.
We all watch it.
What do you feel like you've always, I mean, you're holding yourself to an extreme level of accountability in this thing. Do you feel like that's new for you? Or you've always been accountable to yourself, or would you even call it hard on yourself?
No, I think there's like, it's kind of ebbed and flowed over the years. And I think to keep it more G-rated, I used to be a real dirtbag, let's say. And I feel like I've been kind of like a D-bag in recovery. And as I've been doing this is just one little element added to that's helped me kind of like, I guess, reach a new – you think of like the peaks and valleys in your life. If you start down here, like if you're feeling really crappy and then things go really good and they start going bad, you're back into the pit, the valley, and then it's really good and then it's bad. Like this is like, looks like Bitcoin chart or something, right? Well, the valley like down here is higher than what the peak was down there. Yep. In a way though, the emotions are kind of all the same. But the actions change. That's what I would say. Like an example, if you got an iPhone, if you pull out your iPhone and you go to the health app and you do the little check-in on your mental health, which the skeptic in me is like, this is just them weeding out guns 10 years from now. They're like, you logged that you were not happy that day, so we are not going to let you have a gun. It's like, that's the skeptic. But if you look at the slider, it starts out neutral. You can either go slightly pleasant, very pleasant, or unpleasant or slightly unpleasant, unpleasant, very unpleasant. That's really the whole spectrum of how you can feel. So if you're noticing your life like sliding it to the right all the way, your emotions, like you can't get any happier than that. And then the opposite's true. Like if you're on the worst emotion, it can't get worse than that. And I guess I tie that in because as I've like the different levels, right? Let's say, so if I'm struggling with porn or something or alcoholism, like my peaks and valleys are going to be way different than now I'm out of that. And my valley is, I walked to the airport and I was just like a bobblehead. Yeah. So it's a whole different, the actions are way different. The feeling's the same. You still get the pits, you still get the highs, but the actual like action, does that make any sense?
It makes a lot of sense. What would you say? You call yourself a D-bag in recovery. What were some of the things? Because I know some of your mentors and who you really have gleaned onto. But what would you say was a spark for that? And so, what was the spark? And then, what was the gasoline on the fire?
This is. I didn't plan on going here today, but we're going to go there. Yeah. It's just HBO Raw, right?
Love it.
Keep it G. We'll keep it G. But I remember thinking, there's two quotes that really, there's one quote by Dave Ramsey, which I'm not like I used to be in the cult. Right. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And I still think there's a lot of good there. But one of the things he said was when he fired a guy for looking at porn, he said, if your wife can't trust you, I definitely can't trust you. And right around that time, like I had just met Bridger and John Pennington. I was just learning about funds. And there was a literal, visceral moment in time. Like I remember where I was standing, and I remember it hitting me like a scene in a movie, that if you're gonna like be successful with money and like you want to grow into funds and become an investor, like if your wife can't trust you, nobody can trust you. And it really kind of like set me on a path of, okay, I'm gonna just, now I got to figure out how to like at least quit watching porn or something. So I went and did like Garrett White stuff and a whole bunch of other things from there. And turns out too, like there's a lot of people, I think, I almost think it's like a spectrum now. Yeah. It's like, okay, if you're a man with the limbic system, you're at least on the spectrum. Yeah. But, are you, like one of the 12 apostles? They're so on the spectrum in a way that it doesn't look like a spectrum exists probably. But I think every guy has to be honest and be like, where am I at on the spectrum? And that's where counting the burpees for me helps me realize, like, what was my burpee count today? Was it like in the hundreds? Then I'm probably need to check the emotions.
At that moment when you had that spark, that quote sounds like a great turning point. But what were you doing in business and life, and how was were you very unpleasant or very pleasant?
Very unpleasant, man. Like that was like 2021. A lot of just really heavy. It was a really hard year. And I was doing a lot of stupid stuff. And I think there came a point to the most like recent real, I've talked about this. Well, I haven't posted it yet, but I've been planning on, like I took a picture with Kyle at his house, Kyle Carnahan from Superhuman Fathers. Yeah. And I always call it like my Shallow Hal moment when Tony Robbins did because it sounds like juju, wham wham, way crazy black magic stuff, culty, but it works. So going back to your question though, that year, I think I was so checked out with like, let's say porn and validation from other girls that I didn't realize how numb I was in life. And once I started to really get in touch with the real emotions and actually like get through that and start to feel again, I just like realized, wow, I like missed probably not quite a decade of my life, but like 7 years of just like, wow, I was just living numb, not really pursuing any goals or dreams. And like my wife, I really give her like Woman of the Century award for sticking with me, and she tells me now that like she's getting the reward of, she's like, I knew you were in there, like the real you.
You've been doing a lot of work. I've got a few kids myself, 3 kids, and so I like watching your stuff. You've been doing a lot of work with the Superhuman Fathers. Talk about that organization and what it means for you. And I want to get into the business stuff, but for me, I'm constantly, I've got this constant thing I struggle with, in that I own a business that we've got now at this point 180 people that work for me. 160 of them are salesmen, and a lot of times it's like herding cats. But I'm an expert at what I do. I can run meetings. I can fix problems. I can do it. I can get on a plane without knowing what the problem is, and by the time I'm leaving that place, I've fixed that problem. I'm very confident. It's one of the few things that, I think all of us, I think very few people get to be the top of the world at the thing that they do. And so being able to be that makes me proud, right? But I got a lot of people that if I say, hey, I need you to go do this, it gets done, right? I've got employees. So then when I go home, you can't tell your wife what to do, right? And I still do it, and it doesn't play well, but also it doesn't feel right, She'll still do it because, my wife's an incredible person and wants to be able to take care of me. But also with my kids, it's just, you go from being Superman to, you go home and you start acting like Clark Kent when in reality you should be Superman, right? And it's tough because in my brain, I'm on this earth to build, right? To leave with a legacy. I heard this quote once that kind of like really it bothers me, right? It's that, man dies two deaths when they put him in the ground and when the last person speaks his name, right? Did you ever watch that movie Coco?
Yeah, yeah.
Right, when they forget about him, then they just dissipate,
they
right? And I'm like,
disappear.
oh, dude, I would. So that's why I do the podcast. That's why I do all these things, because I don't want just my kids to remember me, but I want my grandkids and my great grandkids to know me as my mannerisms and be able to see me and know my opinion of how I think of these things. But I go home and I'm just like I'm kind of just I'll get just tired, just want to veg out, whatever it is, and it's wrong of me, but I got to go back out and build these things. And so I kind of trick myself that it's okay that I'm kind of vegging out because I'm building them something that they'll never have to worry about anything, How do you balance? You're now running a growing and successful business with going home and being able to be present like I've been watching you do.
Yeah, and the hard part for me has been, like, I would be home so much because we had things dialed in where I really felt like I was only working so many hours a day, so I was at home a lot more than I should have been, probably, or if I was trying to really put on the accelerator gas. But the other day, my oldest, his name's Elijah, he's 8, and we were jumping on the trampoline, and I don't even remember what made him say it, but he called me Super Dad, and like they noticed a huge difference since I've like become, I guess, in touch with the emotions or healed or, the burpee counting guy. Mm-hmm. And whenever to answer your question, whenever I'm really connected to the emotions and doing all of the good housekeeping to keep the monkeys at bay in my brain, then like the Superman dad like naturally follows. Like in the past, I would want to be playing Super Smash Brothers or something, and my kids would ask to go jump on the trampoline, and I'm like, okay, I'll go jump on the trampoline for 5 minutes, and I'll set a timer. Yeah. And I'll jump on the trampoline with you for 5 minutes, and then I'm going to go back in and do whatever selfish thing I wanted to do. And I realized that I was more and more jumping on the trampoline with them just for the sake of jumping on the trampoline with them and not even keeping track of the time. And that's the kind of stuff that when it doesn't even really feel like as much of a work, like it's not. I always use the term white knuckles, like when you're trying to like do everything you're supposed to do, and you've got all this like checklist of what every podcaster's telling you to do, and there's just so many like things you can fill your day with, right? And a lot of it feels like a chore. Like you're just kind of white knuckling through it, even with the family stuff, right? Like the bedtime routine or playing with your kids or reading to them. For me, that was like I had to be intentional because I did not want to do that. But once I kind of started unfollowing people on Instagram, started getting less and less on there and more in tune with the real me, that stuff kind of just became natural.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to me. How do you then, because in business, sometimes, it's like you got to be like these two polar differences, right? And before I touch on that, let me touch on a point of, I was just thinking today, I've got parents, obviously, and my dad would be gone for 3, 4, 5 months at a time because he would work in Hollywood. And he'd get home in time to whoop my ass and then be back on the road again, right? And I was thinking, even just today, like I've got this need for validation, for appreciation. I need people to be like, "Oh, that was cool," and that was cool. I was thinking about it today, and I was like, "Oh, it's because my parents never told me I'm really proud of you." Right? Never. And so now I've got to do all these things so that people will be like, wow, that was cool. And then I do an overabundance of it of telling my kids, hey, I'm really proud that you did that. I'm really proud of this. I'm really proud of that, which I'm sure will create their own trauma somehow. Right? But you as a father who have obviously, with your parents, just from the brief way you talked about it, have had some serious trauma, how do you beat that? How do you get rid of your trauma, and what are you doing to not pass that on to your kids? How are you breaking your generational curses?
Well, man, I think I already probably rapped to you that little verse about my mom that was like my therapy when I like kind of realized this is where that was the nexus of the most trauma in my life. And to the weird thing. Don't quote Bill Gates too often, but I feel like with kids, he talked about money, and he said you can't leave it with them, and it ruins it if you give it to them. So it's best to just give it away.
Yeah.
And I think that I struggle because I grew up on the left side of the Taco Bell dollar menu.
Yeah.
And like my kids eat Chick-fil-A like,
Yeah.
Whenever they want. And I sometimes I'm just like, you guys I need to figure out a way to give you a little bit of struggle, but not too much struggle. And my oldest, though, I think he's on the right track with like wanting to do stencils on curbs and make his own money and have a Robinhood account.
Yeah.
Early on. So, but I do. That one's kind of I'm still struggling. Like how to.
And we're always going to struggle. It's something I keep in mind. I actually. I am not a therapy guy in the slightest, but I get told all the time, hey, you should go to therapy. And I think it's because I'm super emotionally unavailable. Like, I think my wife has seen me cry 2 times ever.
Whoa.
Yeah, ever. And I think it's because when I was growing up, like, I wasn't allowed to talk until I stopped crying. Like, my dad was like, nope, wait until you're done crying. And then I caught myself doing that to my kids. Like, hey, stop crying and then you can tell me, right? And then I went to one, basically just a consult for therapy, and then I didn't go back. But I did get something from it in that he was like, oh, you can't do that because it's like having dirt in the bathtub and then just saying, yeah, keep trying to clean yourself. And you got to let the dirt out. And so I think there's healthy ways to do it of being like, okay, keep crying. But once you're done, once you're feeling a little, it's okay to cry. But also, once you calm down a little bit, then we can talk this thing out or something like that. But, I think trying to stay humble enough that I don't know. It's tough for me because I just want things done now. And this also translates over to my business. I want it done now. And so if they can't do it now, then okay, I'll just go do it. Right. And then they feel like crap because I've just kind of gone over them and not let them do the thing. I don't know. Not for all that to turn into a therapy session. It's just really always interesting to me. The people that I meet and talk with, and especially the most successful, kind of have these things that are inside them that, kind of drive them. It's really interesting to me. It's a different generation now. Into your business, though, talk about those rags to riches. I mean, because, and what people don't know, I mean, I know you've just had some incredible months. I've been making some great money now for a while, and there's not really a difference between, in lifestyle, between when I was making $500,000 and when I'm making a few million a year. There's not a big difference, right? But what I've always said is it's not about a scoreboard, right, that I'm doing better than you or this or that. But to me, it's like as that number goes up, it justifies the more work that I have to do, right? I don't care about having the extra dollars so I can have this nicer thing, whatever it is. At a certain point, you just stop buying nice things. It's not cool anymore. But it's like, okay, if I have to go do this work, then I want there to be a corresponding reward for why I did it. That thing going up and up and up. But I know that's not how everybody's brain works. As you're trying to grow your business and it gets suckier and suckier and suckier, how does your brain work to keep doing the hard things?
I got a good business partner.
Yeah.
That's like honestly, just knowing what my weaknesses are and stuff like that. And I'm like trying to grow with the sales and acquisitions, and then he's like keeping the trains running on time and the operations side of it. So that gives me a lot of freedom because I'm really just looking for high level. My main job now is to just find other businesses to buy or huge accounts that are like at the corporate VP level of the Fortune 500 companies. So
it's really funny you say that because I've often said that my career will be defined by the partners that I had. A lot of people want to say I'm self-made, that they're self-made, whatever it is. But I'm the opposite. It's like I got way too much of my own version of TISM to be able to do the accounting and the books and all those. But my partner for Performance Windows, he's a savant when it comes to that stuff. Whereas I just like to hang out and talk with people and go sell and be able to work on salesmen, different things. and having a business partner is the only way I could have had anything I have on these things. But also, it's one of the hardest things you ever have because we're both alpha personalities who both think we're right and both come into conflict. Do you feel like you've ever come into conflict with your business partner?
There have been I can count on one hand the like real, actually probably like two fingers.
Yeah.
And it's really, trying to think how, I remember Phil Knight talking about, he called them butt face meetings where they go drink the sake and get drunk and have a board meeting. And my business partner doesn't drink, so that wasn't. And I actually haven't drank for like 3 months, so I'm gonna say I don't drink either.
Yeah, I love it.
But that, how did we resolve? I think like having our wives, a big part of it too. I always tell them, like, I feel like we've taken the disc profile and we were literally like the total opposite, but if you lay them on top of each other, it's like all four are maxed.
Yeah.
And so I think that it really, having somebody who's your opposite helps a lot. Not saying that you can't make it work otherwise, but
I think you're spot on with that, dude. Like me and Levi, we have a lot of similarities, but we also are very strong in each other's weak spots. And me and him, it'll be about every 4 or 5 months, and we've been at this thing for 4 years now, where we're going to have a knockdown, drag-out fight, and we can both feel it coming for weeks, and it's bad. I mean, never fought. I mean, he's 260.
He's a savant in the gym, too.
He's benching 500, and I'd still whip his ass. But I'm just kidding. But I think it's because it's mutually assured destruction. We both know that we need the other one, and we're both have come to that realization a long time ago. And so to ruin this thing is to take away everything we've worked for. So, that's why I feel confident to be able to say whatever it is that I want to say. It's like with my marriage, right? Is I know I can say even the most horrible of things because at the end, we're going to be okay. So I feel safe enough to say the things that are on my brain that I have to say because I know at the end, we're going to be okay.
Now that you say that, I always refer to it like a marriage. I always be like, me and Brent were married. Like and marriage isn't easy, but it can be really rewarding. And whenever you feel that something's bugging you and it's building up, like what you're talking about, every 4 or 5 months, when we have had that happen, I always think of another Dave Ramsey quote is to be unclear is unkind. And so I just start the sake meeting off that way.
Yeah.
Like this is how to be unclear, operating from to be unclear is unkind. Then if I don't tell you how I feel, I'm doing you a disservice, doing all of us a disservice. And then I would give Steele a little shout out here. Something he said the other day that I've been using is direct with respect.
Yeah.
So direct with respect is another way to, like, once you realize you both have your interest is for your company to do the best it can. If you operate from that and you're both owners of it, see, that's another thing is like you're set up economically to have each other's best interests in mind.
Love that, dude. Big shout out to Steel Kazarian.
Yeah, EOS.
Talk a little bit about you, and we're getting close here, but talk about what the roles of mentors and consultants like that have done for you personally and professionally.
Oh, shit, man. I probably would just be, I'd still be living that life of quiet desperation without people like Jeff Flam and I'm going to say John Pennington also. I got a lot of mentors, but those are two that have really helped not only talk me off the edge with like faith and stuff, but gave me direction and inspiration about what's possible. And I think, masterminds, you hear people talk about masterminds and it kind of sounds a little bit like there's a lot of them I think that are money grabs maybe, but then there's ones that are like the real deal. And if you get in like the real deal kind of a network, that's what's going to change your life. And I see so many people who are trying to reach their goals, but they maybe don't want to deal with the networking aspect of it. And like my business, I'm not ever going to find a customer for industrial painting at any of these networking events. But what I do find, like how me and you became such good friends, and the inspiration, like you inspire me. Like you throw around figures, your low end is like, well, I'm trying to hit for my high end. And the more I'm around people like that, then I slowly shift further and further. And then I feel like all I do is quote people, but Matthew McConaughey, less impressed, more involved.
Yeah.
That one's a powerful quote, because when you first show up, you're like just starstruck by everybody and like all the things, cool things people are doing. But then when you realize, wait, be less impressed and more involved. And more involved would be like, how can I help somebody? How can my little unique personality, how could it contribute to whatever they're going through? And then you realize too, that whole spectrum of unpleasant and pleasant, you can only be so happy and sad, that even though these people are like rocking awesome things that you want to achieve, they're really not much happier than you. Like, and you if you bring it down to that level, that they're not really much happier than you, then now all of a sudden it's the equalizer and everybody has something to contribute.
How do you, and this will kind of be my going out question here, is one of my biggest struggles always is networking, right? Once I'm talking to somebody, I can talk to them all damn day, right? Assuming I like them and can vibe with them. I have the hardest time walking up and saying, hey, I'm Kyle, nice to meet you. This is why you should know me. What do you know what I mean? I've the hardest time with that. You seem to be getting better and better at the networking aspect. What advice would you give to somebody who gets to the networking event? Don't just tell them to go. You guys should go to networking events, right? Easy to find. But how do they make an impact at that event?
I would say have that in the back of your mind, that less impressed and more involved, and think like, how can I be involved and really find a way to help somebody? And that's something Dan's always talking about, like find ways to help. And I had to really think hard for like, how can I help Dan, or how can I help Bridger? And even if it's something silly, like I had somebody write a rap song for Bridger.
Yeah. And
it turned out he actually did like it. Like, but that was just like a tiny little thing that's like, okay, it's not, he could, if he wanted something like that, he can have it done. But to bring that, just like one little example, I'm trying to think of, try to find ways. There's ways to like help people or show them that you care. And if you do it from I guess I should qualify, this all has to come from a genuine place. Like you can't be like, what can I get out of it? Yeah. It's just genuinely, I'm trying to just, I think you're an awesome dude, and I thought this would be a cool song. Or like fixing somebody's sign on their business or something like that. Like just think of ways that you can actually try to help them. Don't be an asshole. Don't ask for advice and not use it. There's things that Dan never even told me directly. He just put it on his stories that I went and did it. Yeah. And if I hadn't, I'm pretty sure I would have been bankrupt if I hadn't have done that. Yeah. Like saved my skin. And so it's like, why are you wanting to fix the sign for him for free? He's like, well, because I feel like saved my business, and he doesn't even know it. So how can I say thank you? Here, let me do something for you.
You actually cost me money. I've told you this already. But when you were celebrating that time that Dogecoin was on the way up, I was like, oh. And I went and bought 5 G's worth of Dogecoin, and immediately dropped it back down. And I called you and told you.
You haven't sold it yet, though, have you?
Nope, still got it.
Okay, you haven't lost it then.
But I called you and told you were like, yeah, dude, you could have just come over to my house, given me 5 G's, I'd have kicked you in the balls, and that would have been the same experience. But, dude, Dan, honestly, I've loved being around you, and I love seeing what you're doing, dude. You're one of the ones who, I mean, everybody can deserve, but you're the ones who currently deserve. Tell people where they can find you on social media and what you're doing.
Dependable _ Dan _ Thomas. And since kind of this like new lease on life, after doing Superhuman Fathers, I've had people like ask if I want to do like a men's group, and I think that's probably like, you talk about being constipated emotionally. I think that's every man needs like a little tribe that they feel like they can be. There's no judgment zone, and you can just be like, borrowing from AA, who you see here, what you hear here, when you leave here, let it stay here kind of a thing. And I think I'll probably do one of those because I've had enough people ask, and it helps me be more accountable to myself, because sometimes maybe I stop counting those burpees, and then I get asked on a podcast, how's my burpee count? And it's like, man, yeah.
Well, guys, this is one of my favorite follows on Instagram, dependable_Dan_Thomas. Follow him. He's the man. Thank you for tuning in to Leave It to Deever. Follow us on every platform.